Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here is your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Yes, that is right, my friends. You have tuned in ever so wisely to America's home for conservative, not bitter talk. I'm your host, the one and only, the benevolent dictator here behind the microphone, Todd Huff. It's a absolute pleasure to be here with you today. And today, I have, you may have seen over the weekend, or even late, it's been several days ago, late last week, Lieutenant Governor from the state of Indiana, Micah Beckwith, who's been, a guest host on this program from time to time. He's been a guest on this program from time to time. I've known Micah for several years now, and he is in the news with some comments he had made about Islam, and he is facing backlash, and you know how it gets. So I just want to bring him on today to talk about this and to clarify things and answer questions and just talk about this issue. So Micah Beckwith will be joining us here, my friends, in just a moment. But before I get started, if you're dealing with discomfort, if you're tired of living off prescription medications and managing the side effects, you are not alone. A lot of folks are looking for something natural they can trust. That's why I want you to check out Christopher's Organic Botanicals, family-run natural kratom company that's rooted in truth, tradition, and transparency. They partner directly with farmers in Indonesia. They lab test everything before it ever reaches your hands. There's no hype, there's no synthetics, no funny business, just the real deal done right. So, you've heard some horror stories, and those horror stories come from shady sellers and synthetic garbage that isn't real kratom at all. So do your research. Once you decide this is a product that you want to try, start with their kratom starter pack. Coupon code ToddHuff saves you 10% off your first purchase. Visit Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com for more information or to place your order. Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, transparency. And with that being said, I'm going to bring our friend Micah Beckwith onto the program. Micah, welcome to the program. How are you today, sir?
Good, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Oh, Micah? I think
did I lose you? You there?
I've got a technical issue here. Stand by.
There
we go. Yes.
Hey, Todd, can you hear me?
I can. I'm not sure what just happened there, but I can hear you. Welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you so much, man. It's good to be on with you.
Well, you have caused a firestorm here. You were, I guess, let's just set the stage. You were on a program where you made comments about Islam. Just walk us through what happened and where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was on a program called Flashpoint a week and a half ago, and it's a Christian program. David Barton, Rick Green, Gene Bailey, a lot of guys that I look up to, and we've been talking about Islam for a while. I've been on the program. It's one of the I would say biggest threats America is facing right now is the rise of Islam, and because Islam as an ideology is it flies in the face of the American way of life and American freedom and liberty and the Judeo-Christian principles that we're rooted in. And so I've called it out. I've said it's evil. The ideology is a demonic death cult. I've said it many times over. But I said it again, and this time the Council of American Islamic Relations picked it up, CARE, as they are so affectionately known around the country, and they put it out, and so it made bigger waves this time. But I've said it many times over. Islam's evil. It's a demonic death cult. We should hate it. And we need to get back to hating properly in our nation. You see this rise of people saying we should eradicate hate. Well, that's not a good thing, because when evil comes into your community, or any good parent knows when something evil befalls your kids, you hate that evil thing so you can save your kids because you love your kids. So I've been saying that for many years with ideologies that are trying to take over and kind of warp the American way of life. And so Islam is one of them. Now, I will be very, very clear. And I've always said, I love Muslims. Muslims are people. They're made in the image of God, just like all of us are. And I believe we are called to love one another. And so I can love somebody, but hate what they think or hate the ideology they've given themselves over to and come against that. And so that's what I'm doing here. But as it typically goes, the left, they are on the wrong side of history all the time. And they came at me and condemned my words and said I was horrible for saying I hate Islam. And I said, well, I'll say it louder for the people in the back. I hate Islam. And I'll say it again. I hate Islam. If you didn't hear me, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Indiana, Micah Beckwith, hates Islam, and we should hate Islam. It's a horrible ideology. It subjugates women. It takes children into marriage. Muhammad had a 6-year-old wife. It goes after the infidel. If you don't believe, you can't leave. It's not really a religion. It's a cult because you can't leave it. The hadith says if the unbeliever or if the believer leaves the religion, you are to kill him. And so all of these things are terrible ideas, and it's not what American freedom is based on. And every politician in America needs to be calling it out, and we need to stand against it collectively. So that's what happened, and here I am today, and I love it, and it's been going well, and I'm happy to stand in the gap and speak truth.
So yesterday, I was reading the book of Ecclesiastes, and actually chapter 3, not in preparation. I don't even think I'd even reached out to you at that point. But I was reading the chapter where it says there's a time for every season, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to, plant and sow and all that. It also says a time for hate.
A time to love and a time to hate. Ecclesiastes 3:8.
It does say that. So, but in today's modern Christianity, and I want to dig deeper into this with you, Micah. But in today's modern Christianity, we've the American church, which I think it's a very broad statement, but the American church has lowered the bar, I think, in a lot of ways, and they don't. I think there's a lot of churches, a lot of pastors, unfortunately, that don't like that verse or it makes them uncomfortable. Is what you're saying rooted maybe in that sort of approach? If it's not from God, we're not called to love sin, right? We're not called to love evil. We're not called to love things that go against God's order, God's commands, God's ways of relating to his people, which to the Christians should be rooted in the Bible. And by the way, people who believe Islam believe that the Quran tells them how to relate to God, and that we're wrong as Christians, right? So everybody's making a truth claim here, but is your comments about hating Islam, is it rooted in that, I guess, mindset or approach?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, you got to understand that truth comes from God and God alone. So all truth is God's truth. So you got to find truth. And to your point, there's a truth claim being made by both sides. Islam says that they're right. Christianity says that we're right. So the question then becomes, who's right? And what do you do about governing a nation? Because all nations have a God. The only question is, who is that God? And that God then decides what the laws of that nation are based upon. So when you go to Iran, they throw gays off of buildings because their law says they can do it. They make women, they punish women if women are raped because the hadith says that a woman who allows herself to be raped has been used as a vessel of Satan to tempt the man. And so they punish the women, not the men when men rape women. These are all things that are awful things, I believe, and I think probably many of your listeners would agree with me on that. And we don't want that anywhere in our system of justice and our laws in the United States. Our founding fathers said as much as well. They knew that we were only going to be able to maintain this nation if it was rooted in Christianity. From John Adams, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, they all said it, that Christianity should be the bedrock foundation of this nation and its laws. And so that's where we are today. You have pastors and Christians, though, that have been lured into this false virtue of love is love, and therefore love is everything. So we have to love everything. And the moment you hate something, you obviously aren't loving, which that's the lie. Love is not opposite of hate, and hate is not opposite of love. They're actually synonymous. They're hand in glove, because the Bible says that God is love, but the Bible also says that God hates certain things. Proverbs 6, God hates 6 things. 7 are detestable to him. Lying lips, prideful, haughty eyes, the hands that shed innocent blood are some of the things that God hates. Amos 5:15 says, love good and hate evil. And so you can't love if you don't learn to properly hate. And so so what's happened in our churches, especially with pastors around the country right now, they've kind of been convinced and lied to that, if you hate anything, you're obviously not loving. No, the opposite of love is actually indifference. When you actually just sit back and don't do anything, that's the opposite of love. And so I am calling Americans and America to stop being indifferent about evil things. And so that's what this whole debate is rooted in.
I'm on the phone here with Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith, Lieutenant Governor of Indiana, talking here about comments that he's made and some backlash from that. Micah, what do you say to people who ask, who then take the next step and say, well, he's trying to outlaw a religion, he's trying to interfere, as a government representative, interfere with the free exercise of a religion, in this case, the religion of Islam. What do you say to those folks?
Yeah, no, that's not what we're doing at all. I mean, people can worship however they want. Muslims can worship however they want. What I'm calling on is to make sure that we as Americans never give Sharia law and Islam a foothold in our system of justice and our system of laws. And so we have to be very clear that this is a Christian nation rooted in Christian law, going all the way back to the Hebrew Republic, to Blackstone's commentary on law, to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. It's all rooted in the Christian Western civilization, Christian orthodoxy. And so what I'm saying is we need to make sure that we protect that. We need to be the watchmen on the walls. And when things like ideologies like Islam try to come into America, we need to call it out and stand against it. Again, anyone can worship or choose not to worship however they want. But what I'm doing is saying, as a government official, I am protecting the sanctity and the truth that our laws are rooted in this country. And so you see what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan. You see what's happening in Minnesota. You can see what's happening in Texas. But I would say you can see even more so how this is metastasized in the UK right now. The UK is dealing with this problem right in their face. The takeover of the Islamic movement. And again, it's not just a religion, it's a political movement and it's a military movement. Go all the way back to Muhammad when he immigrated from Mecca to Medina. He got run out of Mecca. Medina took him in. There were Jewish people that took him in. Within 5 years, Muhammad populated his ideas in the people of Medina, and then he dominated the people of Medina. Within 5 years, there were no more Jewish tribes left in Medina. So Islam has always been immigrate, populate, and dominate. That is the strategy all the way back to Muhammad. Muhammad is the best Muslim that's ever lived. This is his strategy. Therefore, the Muslims in the world today follow what he did, and he was not somebody that we should emulate in the United States, and we should push that out and say, hey, it's not welcome here. Again, this isn't to say Muslims aren't welcome here. This is to say the ideology of Sharia law has no place in the United States.
So let's talk a little bit about Sharia law, because that is, of course, a big thing. We've talked about that here on this program in the past as well. This nation, of course, is founded upon natural law, God's order. You cannot deny that this nation is founded upon Christian, or some would say Judean Christian. Others don't like that term, but biblical principles. It's everywhere. You can read the writings of the founders. I used to intern, I should say, for an organization called the Christian Defense Fund, which was in Washington, D.C., and there's all sorts of comments about our founders and just the role that Christianity played in forming this great nation. It's right there for anybody who wants to see it, but of course, the left doesn't want to see it because the radical left is the godless radical left, and they hate God. But there is the fingerprints are everywhere for those who want to see. But we made a choice here to not have a theocracy, and we said that it's better for the government to have laws that are, passed with the consent of the people and all this sort of stuff, and to not have a church-led state. But Sharia law is exactly that from a Islamic perspective. So talk about Sharia law for a moment and what that looks like in places where Sharia law is implemented or sought to be implemented.
Well, Sharia law is a modern day theocratic system of law. It upholds Islam and the Quran and Hadith and the Sunnah all as the pinnacle of their laws, and all of this is going to fly in the face of the United States. We have like you said, we set up a system of governance that was not a theocracy, and our founders were very clear about that. But Sharia law will basically say if you don't convert, you will be subjugated. Now, there's different ways. You can kill the infidel. That's one way to get rid of them, or you can make them pay taxes, and that's also what happened if you go back through Muslim history. Those who did not convert or did not want to convert they could live in that community. They would just have to pay taxes to the Muslims, and they would have been a second-class citizen. This is very similar to the ideology of Nazism. I mean, it was just a different mask, a different facade, but it was all the same. It was, we are above everybody else, and if you don't believe like we believe, you're a second-class citizen. That is not the Christian thought. I mean, there's liberty in Christianity. God doesn't force himself on anyone in the Christian faith. He calls people to come unto himself. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't consequences for rejecting God, but he's not a tyrant. And so we, in America, we said we were going to set up a system of government that models that system. Now, please hear me. Even though we're not a theocracy, we are rooted in Christian truth. John Adams said, "We have no sovereign but God, and we have no king but King Jesus." I mean, you've seen George Washington said, "Out of the habits, the dispositions of political happiness, religion and morality are the indispensable supports." And so John Adams also said that our Constitution is wholly inadequate except for a religious and moral people. Mm-hmm. Noah Webster and Benjamin Rush said the Bible should be the center of our educational system in our schoolhouses. So because Noah Webster said what makes a man a good citizen or a good Christian makes him a good citizen. So this isn't a theocracy, but it is saying, hey, we want to teach the moral law, the Decalogue, of the Hebrew Christian, Judeo-Christian principles, and that will give us a good society. That will give us a safe, free, and prosperous people. And so that's what America's rooted in. Sharia law does the opposite. It says you convert or you die. You live by these rules or else, and these rules are very much men are top of the class, women are second. They have very few rights. And then infidels are worse than dogs. And by the way, dogs are not welcome in Islam either, because Muhammad liked cats. He didn't like dogs. So dogs are considered halal, not haram. Haram is good and it's pleasing. But that is not a dog. They will say, hey, dog, you can't do that. And so it's all these weird rules. And please hear me, it's not really a religion. Islam is a cult. And why I say that is because you're not allowed to leave. We have freedom of religion. That means you have freedom to come and go. If you feel led to take a religion, great. If you feel led to leave that religion, you have the freedom to do that as well. You cannot do that in Sharia law. You will convert or you die. And then once you convert, you're never free to live, or you will be punished and ultimately killed as well. So that's the difference between a constitutional republic rooted in Christian values and a nation that is governed by Sharia law.
What do you say, Micah, to people, by the way, on the phone here with Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith of Indiana? What do you say to people who say, look, I know Muslims, and I think about this from a perspective of Christianity. What was it, Billy Graham? I think Billy Graham said, correct me if I'm wrong, but he said that he thought only 10% of the people filling the pews in Christianity were actually born-again believers in Jesus. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but there's a point to be made that says, look, there are some people that are associating with things for any number of reasons. But so if I know people who are Muslim, as I do, I have people that I work and talk with, on a regular basis, but they're not members of Al Qaeda. They're not members. They're not ISIS. But what do you say to people who say, I know Muslims and they're more moderate? Do you say? I mean, what's your response to that? Do you think that that the majority or all of them are really radical underneath? They're Islamofascists underneath? Or do you see degrees of this? How do you view that, Micah?
Absolutely. There's always going to be degrees of people in any faith, and there's going to be very far extremes. There are going to be moderates. There are going to be people who are just more or less traditional, practitioners of the faith. There will be converts. There will be people who say, well, this is just my heritage. It's just who my dad was. And so that's what I am. So you have that spectrum everywhere. And that's not what I'm talking about here. That's fine. You can have that spectrum. What I'm saying is the ideology itself and the core tenets of the ideology. You have to look to the one who created that ideology. And so where do we go in Islam? Well, you have to go to Muhammad. Why? Muhammad was the best Muslim to ever live. Every Muslim will tell you that. Even the moderates will tell you Muhammad is the pinnacle example of what Islam is and isn't. And so I am not looking at the neighbor of yours down the street. I'm looking at Muhammad. And when I see what Muhammad says and I see what the principles of this ideology are, that is what I'm calling out. It would be like saying this. Hitler was the driving force of Nazism. Mein Kampf, Hitler's autobiography, laid out the principles of Nazism. And yes, you could make the argument that there were some decent people in the Nazi army that did not like what Hitler was doing to the Jews, but they were Nazis still. You could say, that actually happened. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was dealing with that very same thing. He was calling out Nazism, and people were saying, whoa. Hey, we're not all like that, Dietrich. Yeah. Stop saying that. Like, yes, Hitler's crazy. Yes, we don't really like what he's doing, but I'm not that way. I have to wear the Nazi flag.
Micah,
because
I've got to pause you there, and I hate to do this.
Yep.
I'm just up against a tight time break.
Yep.
Quick time out, my friends.
Yep.
We'll continue with Micah
okay.
After the break. You're listening to Conservative Not Bitter Talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. I cut Mike off at a very inappropriate time, so he was in the middle of a thought. I just was up against the clock. So you were making an analogy, and I didn't realize this at the time. So you were let's finish the complete thought here, so that people who may have tuned in who heard that abruptly cut off, because it's my fault. I got us to the end of the segment, and I have to take a break at certain times, and you're still talking, and so I'll let you finish, Micah, what you were trying to say before this host ever so rudely cut you off last segment.
No, you are all good. You're all good. And we were making the analogy that, yes, there are some very nice and seemingly good Muslims that live, in our communities. And yes, that's actually very true. I know some Muslims, and they are very nice, and I would even consider them friends. And but I made the analogy and the comparison to, you could make that same argument with Nazism back in the 1940s. You could say that, hey, not every Nazi is Hitler. They were wearing the Nazi flag, but they didn't necessarily like what he was doing to the Jews. Some of them were probably seemingly good people, but they had bought into an ideology. Whether they were fully engrossed in the ideology or not is not the point. The point was there was a cancer and there was a rot of a very wicked, evil ideology that was taking over the world, and it needed to be called out. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer was one of those heroes that called it out. And he even dealt with people who told him, Dietrich, stop making a scene. Stop saying that this is evil. Stop saying this is wicked, because you're really making everyone uncomfortable and you're bringing more division. We don't need more division in Nazi Germany. We need more unity. You are a pastor. You should just love people. Just tell them that you love people, and just let sleeping dogs lie. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer wouldn't do that. He said, no, I'm going to speak against this ideology, whether you are a good person or not. It's the ideology he was calling out. And I'm doing the same thing. This is a wicked ideology. And quite frankly, I mean, I haven't got too many people, even the ones who were pushing back on me, who can defend Islam and the ideology of Islam. They just don't like the fact that I said I hate something. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I hate things, and I hate Nazism, and I hate radical Islam, and I hate, I hate a lot of things. I hate evil. I hate, people who shed innocent blood. I mean, this is not good, and we should hate it. And so all of that to say, that's the comparison I was making. And so it applied back in the 1930s and 1940s for Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and it should apply for us today if we are truly going to be good people who stand up and declare heaven's truth in America.
Well, sorry for cutting you off at an inappropriate time there. Thanks for clarifying what you were getting at. I knew what you were saying.
Yeah. I think the last thing I said, though, right before you cut me off, and I told you after the break, it was, I think it cut me off right when I said, you can wear a Nazi flag.
Oh, boy. They would have a heyday with that. So
that's going to be great. That's going to be great. They're going to clip that.
We'll make sure we don't put any clips out there that end with that. So
great. Thank you.
So I took a college on Islam, I took a class in college, I should say, on Islam back 150 years ago when I was at Butler. And I remember talking about, some of these things with our professor and just learning and being familiar and doing what I do here today. And without doubt, I mean, especially in the wake of 9/11, you'll have people that deny that had anything to do with Islam, which is absolutely mind-boggling. You can say that the people who planned that, you can certainly say there are people that didn't agree with that who are Islamic, but you can certainly not deny the fact that these people who planned these horrific attacks on 9/11 and executed them were people who did so not just who happened to be Muslim, but because of what they believed their faith was teaching them to do, which is kind of what you're talking about here today. But what do you say to those who say, Micah, you're just wrong? Because there are sects of Islam who are more moderate. For every verse you find in the Quran, every surah you find, there's some sort of an explanation that you're taking it out of context or that sort of thing. What do you say to those folks?
Well, I would say you can say I'm wrong, but I'm just repeating your prophet, Muhammad. I'm just repeating your holy books. I'm not saying something that is just my opinion. I'm just going back to what you all say you subscribe to. Now, if you want to show me that I'm wrong, well, then denounce some of these radical teachings within the Quran or the Hadith or Muhammad's, life himself. I mean, you get a Muslim to denounce Muhammad taking a 6-year-old as his wife. Just try to do that sometime. If you think someone's a moderate Muslim, just ask them that question and say, so as a moderate Muslim, you don't think it's okay to marry a 6-year-old like Muhammad did, correct? And watch what they say. Because I guarantee you, if they are at all a Muslim, they are going to be very, very hesitant to say Muhammad was wrong doing that. And so if they are really, truly a moderate, like not radical Muslim, I think the very first thing you should be able to get them to admit is, yeah, Muhammad probably shouldn't have had a 6-year-old as his wife. And so that's kind of my point, is that they can't do it, right? Even the moderates won't denounce anything Muhammad did. They won't denounce anything that the Quran or the Hadith tells us to do to the infidel or to the unbeliever. And that's the problem. It's like, well, I don't really like that 9/11 happened as a Muslim, but the Quran does say you can do this, does it not? To the unbeliever? Well, yes, it does. So do you denounce that? Well, I don't denounce that, but I just don't like that happened. Okay, that's fine. But that's the point. The ideology is forcing you into a box, moderate Muslim, and you can't get out of it. And so we have to break the box, essentially, is what we have to do.
I'm on the phone with the Lieutenant Governor of Indiana, Micah Beckwith. Micah, let's talk about this because I think part of what you talked about, your comments, is not just so much, it is, of course, about the Islamic faith, but I think maybe it's also an unspoken assessment of the American Christian faith as well, because you say that we should hate those things that go against God's instruction or God's design. We're to hate sin, for example. We're to hate evil, for example. And there's a big push out there that says, God is love. I've seen this. In fact, where I cast my ballot in the election here, the midterms, the primary, it's at a local church. And as I walked into the door, I've shared this with my listeners. There was I don't remember which flag it was. I don't think it was the pride flag. I think it was the flag that includes the trans and all that. Like, it's got triangles on the corner, if you know the one I'm talking about. On the side of the church. Now, it wasn't hanging in the front yard. It wasn't out on full display, but it was right by the entrance, like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in the corner of a window. And I just, as I was walking in there, and one of my daughters was walking in there, I mean, even she noticed it, and she had questions and all of that. The Bible says all of us have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and that we've got to, there has to be an atonement for those sins. And how can we know, Micah? How can we know what sins exist and how truly offensive they are to a holy God if we don't say they're sinful and evil? And why would we pretend to love those things in the process? Isn't that a little bit misleading to the people listening to the message coming from the church?
Well, it's not a little bit misleading. It's everything misleading. I mean, it's exactly what the devil wants us to do. If we can just not make sin out to be this horrible, evil thing, but just kind of it's not that bad. Or is it really a sin? I mean, remember the very first temptation ever given to humankind from the devil in the Garden of Eden, the serpent in the garden. What did he say? He said, did God really say, right? Hey, Adam and Eve, did God really say, if you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that you will surely die? Did God really say that? And he just plants the seed of doubt. He gets you to think that it's probably not that bad it's probably not that bad. Like, God will be okay with it. Like, listen, love is love. What's the big deal if somebody just, sleeps with someone of the same sex, or what's the big deal if someone just takes a 6-year-old to be married in the Muslim faith? What's the big deal if we just kind of have other gods or put ourselves on the throne? I think if there is a God and he is loving, then he'll be okay with that because he loves me. Well, listen, he's all loving, absolutely, but he's very just. And a just God has to destroy sin, and he can't be around sin, and he has to punish sin. And so if you want to embrace sin and you won't let go of your sin, at some point when God deals with that sin, it's going to hit you too. And that's the whole point that Jesus came, because God didn't want to punish you. He loves you. He loves me. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. I am not any better than a Muslim. I want everyone to hear this. I am not saying this from a place of pride and arrogance that, I'm somehow better than a Muslim. I am just as wicked, just as evil, just as fallen in my sin state as they are. And God of heaven and earth saw us, and he sent his son to die for us. He gave himself as a sacrifice so that we didn't have to be punished. And so if we as Christians who have seen the light now know the light, and yet we let darkness sneak back in, how much do we have to hate our fellow man to let the darkness start sneaking back in and taking back and destroying them? And so I'm speaking out of love. When I call out Islam, I'm doing it from a place of actual love, not indifference, not this virtue of tolerance. And G.K. Chesterton said, tolerance is the virtue of a how does he say it? The virtue of a. I
just read it this morning. Yeah.
Yes, I was the virtue of a convictionless man.
There you go.
I think, or men of no conviction.
Yeah.
Yes, men without conviction.
Let's pause there, Micah. I've got to take a break again. Sorry. Quick timeout.
Yep.
Talking with Micah Beckwith, Lieutenant Governor of Indiana. Back here, my friends, in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Third, final segment, talking here with Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith, the state of Indiana. Friends, let's be honest, when your financial world starts getting a little more complicated, you need more than one size fits all advice. That's where Full Suite Wealth shines the brightest. Their team specializes in working with families and individuals at your level. They offer personalized guidance that goes far beyond the basics, from private equity and private credit to options, strategies, and coordinated legal planning. Full Suite Wealth helps you see the big picture and make confident decisions about your legacy. It's about having a dedicated team guide you each and every step of the way so you can focus on what matters most: your family, your goals, your future. Want real confidence in your financial life? Well, head on over to fullsuitewealth.com. That's fullsuitewealth.com. Build your legacy, secure your future. I'm going to bring Micah back on here. Micah, we were chatting here before the break, and you had mentioned something, or during the break, I should say, you had mentioned something that I can relate to. And that is, we were talking about the amount of support or opposition you've gotten from this. And you told me that, hey, there's a lot more support out here that I'm getting and hearing than opposition. I have learned that conservatives are often maybe quieter sometimes. They sometimes don't broadcast things on social media and hit you up with expletives and so forth in your comments and all that. So talk a little bit about that, I guess. What's been some of the feedback, good and bad, I guess, that you've gotten from this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For every negative, hostile comment I get or message I get, either social media or emails to the office or text messages or whatnot, I'm getting, I would say, 4 to 5 that are positive, saying, hey, thank you for what you're doing. We've seen this. We've had the same concerns about radical Islam and this Sharia law state that we're seeing in places like the UK getting a foothold here in Indiana or in the United States. And so I was just at a big conference. So I was speaking last night up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, at a big education conference. There are a few thousand people from all over the world. And I got bombarded after I came down off the stage with people coming up to me. I was probably talking for another hour after this whole thing got over, with people just coming up saying, hey, thank you. We saw what you did. We see the stand you're taking. We're with you. We support you. Like, don't back down. And so this is, I didn't say this whole thing on Islam for political reasons, but I will tell you right now, this is a political winner. If you're a conservative and you want to, rally the base and the majority of people to support you in politics, if this was for political expediency, take a stand against Islam. That right now, this is just a winning issue for America, because it's not because Americans hate Muslims. It's because we recognize the wicked ideology, and a lot of people just don't know how to address it. So when they see somebody standing up saying, hey, I'm going to call it out, I'm going to run at this thing head on, it resonates with people. So I've been very encouraged. People have been texting me a lot over the last few days, but oh my gosh, we've been seeing all the negative, media, and we're so sorry, and we hope you're doing okay. And I'm like, I'm doing great. I love it. I think this is fantastic. This is exactly what I got elected to do, and I'm doing it, and I'm not going to back down. So, and we're winning. We just have to, conservatives have to just recognize there's more of us than there are of the crazy woke left and the radical, progressives that want to destroy America. And please recognize this: we're seeing another red-green alliance happening in America. And if you go back into the 1970s, you can see the red-green alliance in Iran, and that was the Marxists and the Islamists. They linked arms and they overthrew the Shah in Iran. The radical Islamists took control with military might. Once they had control, they marched all the Marxists out into the street and murdered the Marxists, because they really hate the Marxists. And they don't like anything about Marxism, and they wanted a radical theocracy under Sharia law, and so we're seeing the same thing. And they'll be friendly. The radicals will be friendly to the Marxists right now, because they all hate the Christians. They all hate the godly principles America was founded on. And so we just have to recognize, as Christians and people who know the foundations of this nation, to say, hey, if we just stand up, we can push this back. But we just have to be united in our defense and stand against what is evil, and God will be with us. If God is for us, who can be against us?
Well, it also tells me that a lot of people understand the differentiation between hating Muslims and being against this radical ideology. I wish I had more time. Yeah. I would ask you more about the church of comfort, which America has, because I think there's an element of that here as well. We want to go out of the way to not speak things that are truthful sometimes. I say we Christians collectively, not you or whoever specifically, but that's a factor of this too. And it's hurt us, I think, in the long run here with where we are. So, Mike, any words? I got 30 seconds. Any words that you'd like to share in closing?
Yeah, just remember to love good and hate evil. I mean, do that when you're parenting your kids. Love your kids and hate the evil that could destroy your kids. Love your nation and hate the evil that can destroy your nation. Love Christ, follow him, love what he loves and hate what he hates, and we'll win.
Well, Micah, I appreciate it so much. Micah Beckwith, Lieutenant Governor here in the state of Indiana. He's been a guest host here before. He's been a guest on this program, and I appreciate you coming on the program to chat, Micah. So enjoy your...
Hey, thanks for having me, Todd. I really appreciate you.
And enjoy your time in the nation's capital. That's Micah Beckwith, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Indiana. And folks, there's the music telling me it's time for me to wrap up. But I appreciate you listening as always. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'm going to sign off as I always do with SDG.